Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do? When you shut the drum, don't come for you.
J Squad.
Hit me with the bass, bang.
American Hostile Championship Wrestling brings you Battle of the Bad Boys 2. That's right, the score has not been settled. But on June 8, 2019, Mark Southern steps in the ring again with the Missouri Bad Boys. Doors open at 6:30 with bell time at 7:30 at the New Madrid Eagles Club located at 410 US 61 in New Madrid, Missouri. All tickets are $12 and get $2 off in advance. Children 5 and under free with a paid adult. You can call Mark at 636-232-3313 or James at 573-359-8696. That's for advance tickets, guys. Also on the show, Maverick, Tom Cash, Iceman, Demarius Jones, and reality TV star, Power Pro superstar Derek King with Just In Case. Their first match ended in no contest. Guys, it went all over the building and it was stiff. You want to see this. Don't miss this on June the 8th. Be there!
Mysterious Productions. Let's get spunky. What we gotta get your wet by using Let's get spunky tonight.
Shootin The Shiznit is sponsored by spunklube.com. Spunklube is an award-winning personal lubricant that's fun. Spunklube is available in 4 varieties: hybrid, pure silicone, natural, and pink. Place your order today at spunklube.com and tell them Shootin The Shiznit sent you.
Now me and her had been at it for a couple of rounds. When things got dry, man, I pulled out the tube. I gotta get her wet by using my spunk lube. Nice and smooth, wet and
Blue Chew can now offer you the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis at a fraction of the price, discreetly delivered to your door. No waiting rooms, no appointments required, no embarrassing face-to-face meeting with your doctor. You're just minutes away from a heightened sex life.
Use promo code STS. Get your first month free. All you have to do is pay postage and handling. Now on with the show.
Dirty Dutch Mantell is coming to Memphis. Championship Wrestling presents an evening with Dutch Mantell Sunday, June 9th at High Tone in Memphis. Dustin and Maria Starr will serve as special MCs while the legendary Dirty Dutch Mantell brings an adults-only night of humor, wrestling history, and drinking. Get your tickets now at ChampionshipWrestlingMemphis.com.
Tonight, Jerry Lawler, I'm going to prove when you mess around with hot stuff, you're going to get burned.
Tonight's the night that Eddie Gilbert starts to live up to his name. He calls himself Hot Stuff. Well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make him real hot tonight.
If you ever try it again, I'm going to kill you, Jack. Do you understand what I said? If I got to run you over with my car, you want to be nuts? Well, I can be a little nuts too, Daddy. So it ain't playing no wrestling games, Jack. I'm talking about fact. You're not throwing nothing in my face, and you ain't sneaking up behind and doing nothing to the superstar. Because I'm taking you out, brother, and I mean all the way out. And that's a fact, Jack.
In the Twilight Zone now! In the Twilight Zone! Yeah. Monday! Yeah.
Oh yeah, music to my ears. Son of a gun. Hello again, everybody. Lance Russell and Dave Brown, and we're right along ringside all ready to kick it off for another big day.
Hey, before we get to the episode, I just want to thank everyone for helping us break the record for the Memphis in May from last year. We're giving away a loot box. That's right, a loot box. You still have a couple of days. Hashtag MIM. If this is the first episode of the series you're listening to, go back and listen to them all. Now we're going to go to commercial, and then we'll get on with the show.
Hankey's Toys is the place for your adult toys. All toys sold on this site are made of the finest 100% platinum silicone. From the texture, firmness, length, and width, Hankey's Toys are designed to please. Hankey's Toys takes a lot of time and effort to develop each toy. Reach them on Twitter at Hankey's Toys. Search YouTube Hankey's Toys and see the unboxing of many of their products. Also go to www.mrhankeystoys.com. That's right, mrhankeystoys.com, and use promo code Shiznit10 at checkout for 10% off your order.
We are live from STS Studios in St. Louis, Missouri, soon to be Jonesboro, Arkansas in 3 months. Speaking of Arkansas, I've got a longtime fan and a very, I can actually say this, Steve, my old buddy, Steve Crawford. How's it going, Steve?
Oh, it's going great. Yeah, old buddies from the Arkansas State University days in the late 1980s. So, yeah.
Yes, just crazy. And it was one of those things with Memphis in May. I was wrapping it up. I need another interview, and I was thinking, this is kind of what Shootin The Shiznit is always what I want it to be. We've got, we've jumped in where we have some bigger names and big names, but I try to concentrate on things like this. I just want to bring on an old friend, and we'll shoot the shit. The weird thing is, even though I've read some of your books and all that, there are things that I just don't know about you. So I'm going to ask you some questions about growing up. I want you to kind of stress. So we stress this in Memphis in May, and I say it a lot. The effect or the actual how popular Memphis Wrestling was in our, and I'll tell you was from Rector, Arkansas, right?
But Rector, Arkansas, the big city, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's this joke that Mojo Nixon tells that he's kind of a punk folk singer type. But he says, I grew up in a town where there were two things to do. You could get drunk and drive around, or you could drive around and get drunk. That's kind of Rector, Arkansas. And I didn't even drink, so, I mean, my options were really limited. But, for context, I was born in 1965. So throughout the 70s, growing up in Rector, Arkansas, you basically had about 5 or 6 TV channels, the pre-cable era. And everybody watched Memphis Wrestling. Everybody talked about Memphis Wrestling. It was just huge. And, I remember being a little kid and seeing Lawler and Jim White and Sam Bass and those type of things. One of my real early memories is I'm sitting around with all my uncles, and we're talking about, we just seen Memphis Wrestling. And do you remember Tojo Yamamoto's gimmick with the wooden shoes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think he kind of dropped that later, but in the early 70s, he'd come out wearing the robe and the wooden shoes. And there was some sort of schmoz, and he had to clear the ring, and he starts hitting the heels with the wooden shoes, and they act like they've been shot with a cannon, They're just screaming and flying, and my uncles were like, man, when Tojo gets those wooden shoes, you'd better get out of the way. Those are serious. People took it seriously back then. One of my early memories I think is pretty cool was when Lawler was going to face Jack Briscoe for the title. And, so this had to be 74, 75-ish for the time frame. And he was on Rick Dees. And Rick Dees at that time was the most popular disc jockey in the city of Memphis. And he went on.
He was very popular throughout the United States when he came out with that Disco Duck song. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Then he released the Disco Duck song. That was a #1 national hit. And he went on to be in Los Angeles, the big DJ there. But Lawler was kind of on, it seemed like a really long period of time. Like he was the guest and they'd play a few songs. And by the end of that segment, you were so convinced that Lawler was going to win the world title. I mean, I was 9 years old in Rector, and I'm like, how can I get a ticket to see Jerry Lawler win the world title? So, and it's just funny that, those guys just went on and their legends just grew individually. But, it was everything. All the kids talked about it. The parents talked about it. I mean, it was the, male soap opera, I guess, of its day. We didn't think about it like that. We thought of it as more as an athletic competition, but the storylines hooked everybody during that era.
Yeah, you was talking about winning the belt two times ago. I was already smartened up to the business and was told a couple of times that Lawler's going to win it. And it was Lawler against Flair at the Coliseum. I was told, be down there. This is a title change. We got, Crockett's there, Jerry. I mean, they're telling me everybody that's going to be there. They're going to be setting up, blah, blah, blah. And so I went for Flair against Lawler, saw everyone up in the, rafters thinking the title's going to change hands. No, it isn't. The second,
they were good at working you on that. That's for sure.
They were, but they were working me. I mean, here I am. I'm supposed to be smart in the business, and the person that told me was usually they were right on the money. So then Lawler against Kurt Hennig. I get a call, and this was actually from Joel Goodhart, and everyone knows that name, and he's like, man, Lawler's winning the belt. You got to get down there, Tramel. You got to get down there. And I'm like, I've already heard this once before. I'm not going. And then Lawler wins the belt. So, yeah, that's my wins the belt thing. And I think, and I know they did this in other territories, and me and Randy talked about this, actually the thing with Briscoe and all that, but one of the biggest times probably drawn-wise in any wrestling company during that year, but it was the build that Jerry Jarrett or the bookers were so good at.
Yeah, so masterful. I mean, Jarrett always made the World Championship so important, and you just always felt like, Lawler's going to get it this week. He's got Nick Bockwinkel cornered. There's no way out. No disqualification. You just always felt like it was going to happen. And they always did it in a way that kept Lawler strong for the next time, that you didn't lose faith in it. That, you never thought, well, it's just never going to happen. So Jarrett was brilliant about that.
He beat Jerry Briscoe the week before. Lawler had beat Jerry, and that was one of those things where the fans were like, and here's something else, and I know we're getting off the subject, but here's the weird thing, and me and Randy talked about this on his show, not actually my show, but Lawler was a heel during all this, and he was still drawing tons of money. They were wanting to see the local guy against the world champion. That was the big deal right there.
Yeah, absolutely. When it's kind of like, you might fight your brother, but if somebody else comes in to punch your brother, then you're going to take up for him. Lawler's the local guy, and if he's fighting the world champion, he's your hometown team. Even though you don't maybe like him, you still respect him because he's tough and that sort of deal. So
yeah, and the thought that the world championship would be in Memphis, and that was considered our hometown when it came to wrestling. Being me from Steele and you from Rector, we're about it's about 40 minutes, right? 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and this is a little off the subject too, but man, I wish I'd known about Malden, Missouri back in that era.
Oh yeah, me too.
You had Randy Savage in 1981 wrestling in Malden, Missouri, and it's like, Eddie Gilbert went through there. I mean, so many guys, Coco Ware, and it's like I was probably 30 minutes away. Never knew a thing about it until years and years later. So.
Well, someone really famous went through. You mentioned a lot of people right there, but Coach BT, he actually booked over there. Look,
when it really got hot.
That's when it really got. Yeah, we were drawing. Sometimes we would draw close to 75 people. So there you go. Now I knew what I was doing.
A few years ago, I actually talked to David Schultz about wrestling in Malden, and his face just lit up.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, he was like, that was so great. You'd wrestle 3 or 4 times a night. You'd come out under a hood, and then you'd wrestle in a tag team, and you'd do a battle royal, and you might make $30, and nobody knew what they were doing, so we were half shooting in there. And just really funny how excited he got talking about Malden, Missouri.
Well, that was a true outlaw show right there. We talk about, when we talked to Forrest, we talked to other people this month, talked about the outlaw, like in Dyersburg. They never worked Memphis, and then like guys like Gilbert and Schultz and all of them did, but they were just kind of like, most of the guys on the roster were just, you never would have seen them except maybe jobbers, Sarge O'Reilly, guys like that worked on TV. They worked every weekend, and I had seen I caught one in Blytheville one night, and I was just astonished. I was just like, what the hell are all these people doing? They're wrestling. What? This is not Jerry Lawler. And I kept going to those shows until they shut them down. They were bleeding and flying all over the place, and I was like, this is not Memphis Wrestling. But all right, so you growing up watching Memphis Wrestling, and I got a couple of things here with when did you I want to ask you, when did you get smartened up to the business, or when did you decide, hey, I know this is not on the up and up, but and I knew for a long time, but I still loved it. So
yeah, I was pretty much the same way. I mean, you would see through things. I remember, why in the world is the guy stomping his foot on the mat when he's throwing a punch? And, I mean, we had fights on the playground, and you'd see somebody with a black eye. How can he hit that guy 20 times if he doesn't have a black eye? So, you kind of always knew that it wasn't on the up and up, but it was so entertaining, you just got hooked into it anyway. So it just worked.
Yeah, I think, and we talk about playground. Almost everyone I talked to that grew up Memphis Wrestling, I think that's how we did that. That was the thing to do. You were Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee. Hey, let's fight until we got in trouble.
Exactly.
I remember coming out of a swing. I was a fat little boy, but I would like swing really high and then dive, to try to jump on somebody, so that I was doing a move on somebody, and then the teachers actually stopped that. So when did you get turned on to, like you said, you kind of knew what was going on? And I thought the same thing. Actually, probably very early, because I was so close in Blytheville, Arkansas, and so I seen missed punches and stuff like that, and I didn't want to say, oh, it's fake. I didn't want, because I was enjoying it as a kid. I've never told this story, but my dad was a wrestling fan growing up, and he was in Dyersburg, Tennessee, watching wrestling, and he got on the ferry. I don't know if you remember that, but they had a ferry. Yeah, he got on the ferry, and he saw Tojo and another heel. I mean, a babyface. Tojo and a babyface together. And Tojo was a heel, and that killed him. He didn't want to watch wrestling anymore. So that was one of those things. I don't think that bothered me at all when I found out. So
yeah, my dad had a very similar experience, and this was probably 50s maybe, because my dad was born 1940-ish. But there was a big heel called the Mighty Yankee, and they were doing a spot show in Kennett, Missouri, and they see the Mighty Yankee and whoever he's facing, driving to the National Guard Armory together, and so that kind of shot it for him. So, but I do want to tell one story that about my dad and I watching wrestling.
All right, okay, all right. Let me get a quick commercial break. We'll come off the commercial. We'll talk about you and your dad in this story. I love these kind of stories. So,
all right, good teaser.
Bad boys, what you want, what you gonna do? When Sugar John don't come for you.
J Squad, hit me with the bass, bang. Hit me with the bass, bang.
American Hostile Championship Wrestling brings you Battle of the Bad Boys 2. That's right, the score has not been settled. But on June 8, 2019, Mark Southern steps in the ring again with the Missouri Bad Boys. Doors open at 6:30 with bell time at 7:30 at the New Madrid Eagles Club located at 410 US 61 in New Madrid, Missouri. All tickets are $12 and get $2 off in advance. Children 5 and under free with a paid adult. You can call Mark at 636-232-3313 or James at 573-359-8696. That's for advance tickets, guys. Also on the show, Maverick, Tom Cash, Iceman, Demarius Jones, and reality TV star, Power Pro superstar Derek King with Justin Case. Their first match ended in no contest. Guys, it went all over the building, and it was stiff. You want to see this. Don't miss this on June the 8th. Be there!
Mysterious Productions. Let's get spunky. What we gotta get your way by using the spunky tonight.
Shootin The Shiznit is sponsored by spunklube.com. Spunklube is an award-winning personal lubricant that's fun. Spunklube is available in 4 varieties: hybrid, pure silicone, natural, and pink. Place your order today at spunklube.com and tell them Shootin The Shiznit sent you.
Now, me and her being at it for a couple of rounds. When things got dry, man, I put out the tube. I gotta get her wet by using my spunk lube. Nice and smooth, wet and
Blue Chew can now offer you the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis at a fraction of the price, discreetly delivered to your door. No waiting rooms, no appointments required, no embarrassing face-to-face meeting with your doctor. You're just minutes away from a heightened sex life.
Use promo code STS. Get your first month free. All you have to do is pay postage and handling. Now on with the show.
Dirty Dutch Mantell is coming to Memphis. Championship Wrestling presents an evening with Dutch Mantell Sunday, June 9th at High-Tone in Memphis. Dustin and Maria Starr will serve as special MCs, while the legendary Dirty Dutch Mantell brings an adults-only night of humor, wrestling history, and drinking. Get your tickets now at ChampionshipWrestlingMemphis.com.
All right, we're here with Steve Crawford, my old buddy Steve Crawford. Steve, go ahead and tell, you was just about to tell a story about you and your dad in wrestling.
Yeah, this was, I kind of watched wrestling off and on through the early 70s, but I was a little kid and I was, out playing my friends and doing other things. And kind of when Handsome Jimmy hit, that's when I really started watching seriously. And, a lot of people don't know that era of Handsome Jimmy Valiant. He had a great physique. He was so charismatic. I mean, people were just glued to him when he came on the television set. So one day he comes out, and I've never seen this since. I don't think it's on YouTube or anything. And he's doing his weekly interview with Lance. He's doing the promo, and he ends it up saying, "Well, I got to go to the backstage now and take some more drugs." And my dad and I just look at each other like, holy shit, did he just say he had to take some more drugs? And Lance Russell, he earned his salary for the entire year at that moment because he goes, Jimmy, he's been dealing with this sinus issue backstage. So that was part of why it was so great. It was because it was live television. And you just, we didn't know what was going to happen. And sometimes, the performers, I don't think knew what was going to happen. But I've never forgotten that moment and how Lance glossed over what could have been this just horrible, negative issue for the television station. He was so slick. He just went right through it.
He was a master. He actually did the promos for half the guys there, and they didn't even know that he was doing it. And that's what I always loved to listen to him. Now when I go back, we did, Was It Really That Good this month on an old show with Jerry Oski. Do you remember him?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, he's doing an interview, and he's really stumbling along, and then Lance goes into, being a champion, you never know who you're going to be wrestling against, and that's tough sometimes. It's tough being the person challenging for the belt, but it's really tough being a champion. So that's actually what that guy should have been saying.
Yeah, he knew when to give him rope, and he knew when he had to reel it in. I actually, a few years ago at the Charlotte convention, I had breakfast with Lance and Shane Russell, his son, they actually called me over. I was by myself that morning, and they're like, "Hey, come eat breakfast with us." And Lance was just as great as you could ever possibly imagine. Just so humble and just like the folksy guy you saw on television. Just
he
a
was.
experience.
Yeah. I met him maybe 5-6 times. We had him at a Memphis Wrestling convention one time, and he was just as open with us, and Lawler told things too that surprised me. But back then, kayfabe was strong, and it was just surprising to listen to things like coming out of his mouth, saying someone asked him in a Q&A, things they're doing now with StarCast we was doing way back then, but
right.
Ask him about what do you say to people who say the wrestling's fake, and he went ahead and gave that story. He said that a movie. Do you say a movie's is it fake? Is that the word to say? And so he was really good about things like that, and just so smart about being just the best to me.
Yeah, I mean, besides Lawler, he was the star of the show, but he was so good at it, you didn't even think of him in that way.
That's true. Yeah. We talked about this on the show for him, but I just never, when he died, me not even knowing somebody and not really thinking of how important. Maybe he was just like a distant grandpa or something. That's the way I felt. And I missed a day of work when Lance Russell died. I know that sounds silly, but it was just part of my childhood that was just gone. So
that hit a lot of people.
Yeah.
So there's another Lawler related story, and it's not a Memphis story, but this is in the mid '80s. I was in the Air Force, and I was living in the Sacramento area, and this was during the time that Lawler was wrestling for Polynesian Pro Wrestling. And he was the champion.
I remember that, yep.
So I'm flicking through one Saturday morning, and I see Jerry Lawler on my TV. And he's been this huge babyface in Memphis since, 1980-ish or whatever, whenever he came back from the injury. And he's doing this very kind of WWF cartoonish promo. He's got the cape. He's got the crown. I'm the world champion. You people should be kissing my royal feet, blah, blah, blah. So it's just like, damn, Lawler's a heel. But then the great part of it was they showed some footage from Stockton, California, and I had no idea they had a show there. I probably would have went.
I know what you're fixing to say. I go ahead, but I know exactly what because go ahead. Tell the story.
So they're building up a program with him and Jimmy Snuka, obviously, right? And there's a breakdown, and Snuka does a run-in, and he's supposed to clear house, right? And Lawler grabs and swings Snuka around, and he's pantomiming as big as life, punch me in the chin. He repeatedly is just pointing to his chin. And finally, after, I don't know, it seems forever, and then finally Snuka's like, oh, and he punches him, and Lawler takes a big bump for him. But it was so hysterical watching Snuka get so lost, and Lawler just trying to, please, please do what you're supposed to do here.
Here's something else about that. This is something else I was going to share. I remember that too because I traded to get those tapes. That one of those matches that Lawler, and I think it may be that match, ringside taking photos. And I think at one time Lawler said that it was his manager. It was Dave Meltzer.
Is that right? I did not know that. Oh, that's interesting.
It's one of the first times I met Lawler. Dave told me to say, that he said hi if I met him, and when I did, it was just like, blah blah blah. And then I had seen the video of him being in Polynesian Wrestling. It was around. He was just running around the ring. I don't know if he's taking pictures or what he was doing, but I remember that. Tell the story of how we become friends, because I'm horrible about remembering anything. But Arkansas State University, you're a year older than me, and so that's where we actually met.
Yeah, I had done 4 years in the service, and so I didn't start being a full-time college student until January of 1988, and I had taken a lot of my preliminary courses while I was in the Air Force. So I was taking almost completely all business courses. I was a business management major, and you were in one of my classes, and I know you had some business classes too. And somebody talked about wrestling, and Bobby Eaton's name was mentioned somehow, and I was just like, oh my God, I love Bobby Eaton. And we started talking, and then you were the first person to give me the Wrestling Observer newsletter. So, that you really smartened me up to like understanding the business from a broader context like that. So, yeah, that's where we met. And at the time, you were working independence. That's the time I think you were flying up to Philadelphia and doing shows. And so it was like you were kind of a rock star, So.
Not really. I did one show in Philly, but yeah, I did the Tom Robinson benefit. That's that one match that's on YouTube. Please, people, do not watch that. Don't look for BT Express. I I was able to, and there's still people in the business that should do what I did, is take a study of your videotapes and see how bad you suck and stay out of the ring. But I had a good run as a manager, had a fun time. Yeah. But I remember that because I went home thinking to myself, this dude's in business college just like me. And I was real protective about who I smartened up. Like, I didn't smarten up everybody. I smartened up my roommate when we were in college, but he wasn't a huge wrestling fan, but I just wanted him to see what if you're not a wrestling fan, a lot of people look down on you and say,
"Oh, sure.
Why do you watch this goofy stuff?" And it's the same thing. Me and him had a conversation one night. Todd Martin was my roommate, and he said, not the Todd Martin, but Todd Martin, and he said, I said to him, he was going to a truck pool and pool thing at the convocation. I don't think it was a convocation center, maybe. And I said, why would you go to that?
Right.
And he's like, why do you go to wrestling?
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, yes, I see now. But yes, I smartened him up. But I came home thinking, here's a guy in business school with me, very smart. I'm thinking, you're intelligent. You're not just somebody off the street. So that's the reason I share. And I had the same thing happen to me. Had Dick Bourne, who's done some wrestling books and stuff, is the guy that smartened me up. He sent me Observer and some stuff, with the videotapes. I like a list from a guy named Steve Minari. Did you ever get a Steve Minari tape list?
I don't think so.
Oh my God, they're legendary because he would go. It's kind of like what me and John ended up doing, John McAdam. And shout out to Pro Wrestling and whatever. Steve, you're in there a lot posting your stuff, and I wanted to shout out to John and them. But me and John kind of stole it from Steve Minari. Where we would describe what was going on. And then Minari had this really, really weird thing happen where he went just nuts. I mean, he went off the chain. He sold off his collection, and then he came back, and then he would tell these outlandish stories. I mean, just there's no way things were happening to him like that. I think he was mentally ill, but it was just crazy because he was one of the guys that really made me think about the Nightmares, because I was a huge Nightmare mark, and they were in Memphis, but the idea that everybody in the United States thought they were one of the top tag teams, and I was just like, they're jobbers, but I didn't understand why they were, why they were such a tough. Speaking of Bobby Eaton, you came all the way from Texas one time, or was you in Rector then?
No. I was in Mansfield, Texas, and man, what's the name of that town that they were working in?
That's when we had reconnected on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then they're in Tuckerman, Arkansas.
Yeah. I woke up this morning, and you were like, yeah, Bobby Eaton's going to be in Tuckerman tonight. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going to Tuckerman, Arkansas tonight. And I took my son, who had absolutely zero interest in wrestling. But it was like, I just have always respected Bobby's work so much. I think he's one of the best ever in the business. And just to get to meet him, and you facilitated that, and I can't thank you enough for that. I'll see Bobby again in August because I'm going to the Charlotte convention. But, nobody has given me more entertainment than Bobby Eaton and the Midnight Express. Just love that team.
I agree 100%, and he's one of those guys that I think I could probably put him up there as very few in the wrestling business that that's treated me just like a normal person. As soon as, and it's because Thompson knows me and all that. But I met Bobby years ago and didn't see him again. And then because of Brian Thompson, we always talks to me. We've had lunch together here in St. Louis before, and just a sweet, just super nice guy. And the story of Bobby, you know the story. He spent all of his money and gave it to his family. He made all this money and gave it to his family. So it shows you how sweet he is, and also with just a performer. Just like you said, probably one of the best performers. Yeah. And if you listen to, I got the StarCast package. It's only got 36 hours of stuff, so I haven't watched it all. But Arn Anderson did his little thing, this past weekend, mentioning Bobby. And you, who else? Like Stone Cold, he always, his Bobby. Everybody says Bobby when he comes to the best, and he's so humble about everything. The first time I ever did anything with him, he, it was with the Golden Boy, and he told us it wasn't in Rector, it was in, I don't know, it was close. It might have been in Rector. It actually may have been in Rector,
Arkansas. I think it was. I think you told me it was in Rector.
Yes. Yeah. And he told us he wanted Golden Boy to go over on him. And we was like, what? Really? Yeah. Okay, we can do that.
Well, he knew I had come up from Tuckerman for that night. And so when he comes out, he's like being a Hill manager. And he starts just, pointing at me and screaming at me. And I'm just giggling like a schoolgirl. Oh, my God, Bobby. It was just a great night.
Yeah, I still get that, even though, I'm excited you get emails from people that and had a good time talking, to Bill Dundee this year earlier, because I've been knowing Bill forever, and he really didn't like me for a long time, so it's fun to talk to guys like that. All right, I got to ask you a couple of things, and then we're running out of time. But we talked about old Memphis Wrestling and everything. You did a Memphis Wrestling book, but you don't have it available anymore, right?
Yeah. It was really inspired. You were doing the Wrestling Riot at the time, and then you had asked me to contribute to kind of a Memphis Hall of Fame project that you were doing as part of the Riot. And so I just kind of took that concept and I said, I'd like to write a book about Memphis wrestling. So I published it, and it did real well for a couple of years. And I thought, I just don't want this languishing, like the once main eventer that becomes a jobber and you just look at him kind of sad. So I took it off the market. I do have a few copies. If anybody, is just dying to have, it's called Legends of Memphis Wrestling. I got a lot of really good feedback on it. Somebody can email me, Steve Crawford at hotmail.com, and just put Memphis book in the title, and we'll work out a deal. But it was a really fun project, and I enjoyed doing it. And it was kind of like my love letter to my childhood in a way.
Yeah, there was another book that you did, and like I said, my memory sucks. And it was, tell me the first one that you put out. What was it called now?
Well, I think the one that you're probably referencing was called Pile Drivers and Power Chords: Stories from Arkansas and Beyond. And I had a very big section on that on the Lawler Idol Rich feud, because that feud to me was just the last great territorial feud. And so I kind of went through kind of the history of what those guys had done and how they got to that point. And I actually got to give copies of the book to all of the guys that were involved in that. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, that was just kind of a bunch of kind of short stories about growing up in Rector and memories of wrestling and things of that nature.
I love that. I love that book. You had sent me another copy, and I've still got it. And at one time, until we moved to St. Louis, and I don't know where the hell it is now, I would read that like once a year, because I had told you this. I really thought about doing my own, but doing Steele, Missouri instead of Rector, because it was just so, it was kind of like the wrestling version of Stand By Me to me. It was just like, you can make a hell of a movie with the stories. Okay, one last real quick question. Well, do you have any books? Because you did music books. I've read almost everything you put out. Do you have anything still out on Amazon?
I don't. I took it off the market, and it got to the point where you're dealing with the tax stuff, and I was living overseas for a while, and I thought, man, I just don't deal with this stuff. like I say, if anybody has a big need, they can contact me and we can work out a deal. But yeah, I've done a couple of books about music and the Power Chords one, and then the Legends of Memphis Wrestling. And my problem is I really like writing, but then I really hate self-promoting. So,
that's Lance says I'm a walking billboard, because I'll ask him, what T-shirt are you wearing to wrestling tonight? Or what are you wearing? He'll go, I'm just wearing I said, what about the T-shirt? He goes, dude, I don't wear a wrestling shirt everywhere. But he really wants me to just quit trying to dress him. One last quick question: do you follow anything now? Is there anything that you actually follow? Are you one of those guys that don't watch anything from the current and stay back stuck in there with all those guys from pro wrestling and whatever?
Yeah, I'm pretty much stuck in the old days. I'll watch clips of things. I tried to watch some Kenny Omega. I just didn't get it. His facial expressions to me were so cartoonish, and I just thought I'm just not understanding this.
All right, Steve, what I'll do is I'll just edit that out, because you're not going to say no. I'm just kidding. Kenny does have some weird facial expressions especially when he first started out, and I thought he was real. I was one of those guys that didn't like him and then jumped on the bandwagon right before everyone else did. I wrote this big thing on my page, and I'm talking like a year before it, and I could tell everybody I told you so. I said he's going to be a huge star, but I'm also the guy that wrote one time that Stan Stasiak? He was going to be bigger than Kurt Angle. So I said that one time, and I think I was a little off on that one. All right, tell everybody. I've already put him over. Do what?
I think he meant taller than Kurt Angle.
Oh, there we go. Go ahead. I put over pro wrestling and whatever. Steve, I see you a lot in there. You'll post stuff about music. If you're a music fan, Steve is a huge music fan and writes. You write columns and everything on some music sites. So put your shit over, like I always say. Put it over on where you're at in the magazines and stuff, or the websites that you write for.
Yeah, I write for this magazine. Well, it's a magazine online website. It's based in New York. It's called Rock NYC Live and Recorded. And I generally do these like huge projects that no sane person would ever do. And so my huge stupid project right now is I'm doing like the 1,000 greatest songs of the 1980s, and I just literally go from 1001 in my completely subjective mind as to what the best songs were, and I try to write a little bit of the history or story behind the song, or try to be clever about it. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. My next project will be on the 1950s. I really like the music historical side of it, just digging into, the history of popular music is something I really enjoy. And the editor of that site's really not kind to let me pretty much write whatever I want, so that works out real well.
Good deal. I'm just astonished at how much you know. Now, Lance is a big music buff, too, and he knows a lot more than I do. I just know... I know a lot about the bands that I've listened to, and that was kind of what I was in general. Not like when it came to, everything I want to know about wrestling. That's not the way I was. And even though you're not a Kiss fan, I still love you, Steve Crawford.
There you go.
All right, guys. Same bad time, same bad channel on the best little wrestling podcast in the business. Be there! And Steve knows this, and all of you know this. I love my mama. Thank you, Steve.
Hey, that kicked ass. That was fun.
If you're like me and have never used skincare products before, I recommend starting with Teej Hanley's Skincare System Level 1. It gives you all the basics that every man needs to look and feel amazing. The best part is that it's only $25, and with our discount, it's only $20 to get started. Guys, I use all the products that we advertise here on Shootin The Shiznit, and I have never used a skincare system where you're using it every day, doing exactly what they say. It's amazing. It really is. Before I started using this, I'll admit, I wasn't convinced that, you got products like this, that they actually work or that you see them, you can see the results as soon as you put them on, or a few days you can actually see the results. I'm absolutely sold. I don't think I can go back without using this skincare system. You can go to tinyurl.com/STS Skincare. That's STS Skincare. Use the promo code right there, Shootin The Shiznit. That's SHOOTIN, The Shiznit. That's right, guys. Tell them we sent you here at STS.
Hanky's Toys is the place for your adult toys. All toys sold on this site are made of the finest 100% platinum silicone. From the texture, firmness, length, and width, Hanky's Toys are designed to please. Hanky's Toys takes a lot of time and effort to develop each toy. Reach them on Twitter at Hanky's Toys. Search YouTube Hanky's Toys and see the unboxing of many of their products. Also go to www.mrhankystoys.com. That's right, mrhankystoys.com, and use promo code Shiznit10 at checkout for 10% off your order.
Graphic design is very important. Your logo is the first image potential customers see. What kind of impression would you want to make today? Need a podcast logo or a t-shirt design? KT does art. Her name has become synonymous with quality and professionalism in the graphic design community. She specializes in graphic design, painting, and more. She provides affordable commissions and professional quality with a timely delivery. Contact KT via email at kt_doesart@yahoo.com. Check out her Instagram at instagram.com/kt_doesart.
That was another great episode of Shootin' The Shiznit. Looking for contestants for Who Wants to Be the Best Shiznitter Ever? That's right, contact me and be a contestant on Who Wants to Be the Best Shiznitter Ever. A big shout out to our sponsors this month. Also, remember, we have a Patreon for only $1. That's patreon.com, Shootin' The Shiznit without the G. A special thanks to Bob McGee at Pro Wrestling's Between the Sheets, Gene Jackson at locals2legends.com, and Sean Garmer at Wrestling to Max website. You can reach me on Comic Book Mark BT on Twitter, at BT Shootin' The Shiznit on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook with a Shootin' The Shiznit Facebook page. We have the Cool Kids Wrestling and MMA Talk Facebook group. If we don't like you, we'll kick you out, but you also have to ask to get in. All the archives are at www.stspod.club. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, Podcast Addict, Spreaker, Spotify, and all the fine podcast players. Podcast Roll Call. A big shout out to Creative Control. Keeping it 100. Memphis Memories with Randy Hales and my buddies over there at P3 Radio, Max and Josh. Also, non-wrestling podcasts I listen to, Who's Right Podcast and Po Boys. Guys, I am Brian Tramel. Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.